there are a lot of concerns, growing concerns about war crimes being conducted on a daily basis in Ukraine. We've been talking recently about the massacres in Bucha and a number of other places. Now, representatives at the UN are talking about the possibility of a generation being destroyed. And they're using that terminology to talk about the effect that this war is having on women and children. I read a stat saying that 2 out of 3 children have been displaced internally or outside of Ukraine as a result of the war already. We know many women and children being killed in these attacks. And there are, according to the United Nations Executive Director for Women, reports of human trafficking, rape, and other sexual violence perpetrated against fleeing women and children in Ukraine. Both attacks against women in Ukraine and individuals and children being taken from Ukraine and then moved into Russia. That's sort of human trafficking as well. And so investigations are ongoing. We're finding out more and more. Thus far, aside from a little bit of heightening of the sanctions that we've seen in the past week, there doesn't seem to be much of a change in approach based on what's happening. And I suppose we can't be too surprised considering, the way that the war had been waged in the first month. But it's horrifying to see some of these sorts of crimes, particularly against women and children, being perpetrated.
Oh yeah, I mean it's devastating, and it just continues to go to the point that Putin has no limits here, and none of this seems to really matter for him. I do think he's wrong that a lot of the Russian people, especially those that are leaving, that are trying to do what they can to make it clear that they don't endorse, what he's doing and these crimes that he's inflicting. But it's a really tricky situation just given the nuclear factor, and that we have to take it on a day-by-day basis. And it does seem like the Ukrainian president continues to emphasize that he wants to pursue diplomatic solutions here. And as long as that's the case, then for sure we should be doing what we can there. But in the meantime, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are harmed. These type of harms are irreparable. Just yesterday, I was actually meeting with a group of refugees from a different region, but who have settled in Ohio, and elders that it's clear have never recovered from some of the things that they had seen in refugee camps and gone through, and that abuse continues. And so, yeah, it's really unfortunate and tragic what he's doing just for his own power.
Yeah, and with that, you were mentioning the nuclear issue. We now move into other sorts of weapons of mass destruction, and we have to tread carefully, of course, because this is one of the areas that is most difficult to know for sure what is happening. But the Pentagon is saying that they're monitoring social media reports claiming that Russian forces deployed chemical weapons in their ongoing terrible siege of Mariupol. We were told just yesterday by the president of Ukraine that at least 10,000 people had died just in that city alone. Well, and bear in mind, the original report, which was made on Telegram, apparently came from the Azov regiment, one of the most analyzed components of this, of course. They're described here as a far-right nationalist battalion, at the very least, defending Mariupol, saying that a poisonous substance of unknown origin had been used. Now that is a social media report from a group that understandably many people are going to be predisposed to not necessarily trust. And the Pentagon, by the way, is not saying that they have found evidence of it. So far, no, I would say even plausibly unbiased group has yet claimed that. And the question of whether chemical weapons will be used, if so, by who, and if so, what should be done, is obviously one of the most, like, the highest stakes topics in this area, Morgan. So I want to tread carefully, grains of salt on everything, but they are saying that they are looking into it at the very least.
Yeah, well, and I think we can be glad that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and trying to get confirmation on this. I mean, we have all lived through, I think we're about the same age of what this has been for the past 20 years or so, of feeling like we were misled, moving too quickly. And so I do appreciate that we now have more of an awareness, and media sources like this one that are gonna be applying more scrutiny of the information that we're getting and making sure that the public's informed. I mean, the problem is, of course, that not everyone is watching this show, and a lot of people are getting information from a lot of outlets that do, broker in the hysteria. But we've got to continue to just like take it step by step, make sure that we're getting confirmation of information, in ensuring that we have verified information that's informing our policy decisions as a country.
Exactly. Yeah, and the hysteria can be, credulously accepting any claim without evidence. It can also be denying it despite evidence that comes out. I'm interested in what is actually happening. That should be the approach. But I do agree with you. I've always considered it to be a major problem that not everyone is watching the show. That something needs to be done at long last. Anyway, so look, we as we always say, we laugh so that we don't cry. This news is horrifying. What's being done is terrible, and we will try to keep you as apprised of the facts as possible.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.